Ever heard of an airline that carries more passengers within Europe than any other?
You'd think it was one of the big legacy carriers.
Right. Lufthansa or British Airways?
Exactly.
Why?
It's actually Ryanair.
Fan.
And get this, they didn't even exist 40 years ago.
It's crazy how they've kind of become synonymous with cheap flights.
Totally.
So today we're going to take a deep dive into Ryanair.
Yeah, let's do it.
See how they got to be such a giant in the industry and what kind of challenges they've got ahead of them.
Right.
Our main source for all this is this Wikipedia article on Ryanair.
Great.
So,
Yeah, what I find fascinating about them is how they really went from like zero to hero. Humble beginnings, single route back in 1984.
okay.
And boom, a few decades later,
Yeah.
they're operating over 500 planes in like dozens of countries.
That's wild.
It's a meteoric rise, no other way to put it.
So back in '84, when they were just starting out,
Yeah.
they were actually called Banner Enterprises, which I don't know about you, but it doesn't exactly scream budget airline to me.
Not quite the marketing genius they'd become known for later, huh?
Right. So what was the turning point? When did they transform into the Ryanair we know?
The 90s were huge for them.
Okay.
That's when they embraced the whole low-cost model, took a page out of Southwest Airlines' playbook.
So they were like, forget the fancy meals, forget the legroom. Let's just get people from A to B as cheaply as humanly possible.
Exactly. They were all about streamlining the operation, making it as efficient as possible.
And I'm guessing the timing was key too, right?
Absolutely. Spot on.
Because wasn't the European aviation industry going through some major changes around then?
Totally, yeah. The early 90s saw deregulation hit the scene.
So it opened up the market to a lot more competition.
Exactly.
And Ryanair was right there, ready to pounce.
They were primed to capitalize on that, for sure.
But I'd imagine not everyone was thrilled about this whole bare bones approach to flying.
You're telling me.
Did they get any pushback from, well, anyone?
Oh, yeah, it definitely ruffled some feathers.
Especially from what I've heard, when a certain Michael O'Leary stepped in.
Oh, here we go.
He became CEO in '94, right?
Yep, that's our guy.
And he quickly became kind of infamous for his cost-cutting strategies.
Let's just say he wasn't afraid to make a splash.
The article even mentions things like, get this, charging for toilets.
Oh, yeah, that was a classic.
Standing seats.
The man was full of ideas.
Even a FOT tax for heavier passengers.
Always pushing the boundaries, that one.
Some of those just sound too outrageous to be true.
Well, whether they were ever really feasible or not is debatable.
True.
But O'Leary was a master at getting people talking, you know?
So it's like, even bad publicity is still publicity.
There's no such thing as bad publicity,
Well-
right? Especially when you're trying to disrupt an entire industry.
So did it work? Did people actually embrace this whole Ryanair approach? Or did they feel like they were being, I don't know, exploited?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And it's something we're going to dig into a whole lot more as we go deeper into the Ryanair story.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Because while those tactics definitely grab headlines, the long-term impact on their customers, that's a whole other story.
All right, let's unpack that then.
Let's do it.
So they were stirring things up, grabbing headlines left and right.
Oh, yeah, they knew how to make some noise.
But did those bold ideas actually translate into cold, hard cash?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, hit me.
They might not have invented ancillary revenue, but Ryanair took it to a whole new level.
Ancillary revenue, remind me what that is again. Is that like a...
Oh, it's all the stuff beyond the ticket price.
Right.
Baggage fees, priority boarding, that mini bottle of wine at 30,000 feet.
Oh, okay, got it.
Even travel insurance you can tack on during booking.
So basically they unbundled everything, made it all a la carte.
Exactly. They realized, hey, we can offer these crazy low fares, but we'll make up for it on all the extras.
Clever, but man, I bet people weren't too happy about that.
Oh, you better believe there were complaints.
Like nickel and diming complaints.
Buckets of them. The article even talks about how, especially in the mid-2010s,
Yeah.
Ryanair was getting slammed for how they were treating customers.
So it was like cheap flights, but at what cost?
Well, that's the thing, right? They had the low-cost model down pat, but customer service, not so much.
Did they ever try to, I don't know, smooth things over with passengers?
They did, actually. Around 2014, they started trying to soften their image a bit.
Oh, yeah. How so?
They made some changes, like letting people bring a small carry-out for free,
Okay.
and they eased up on some of those pesky fees, like reprinting boarding passes.
I guess everyone's got to find that balance, right?
Cold.
Keeping costs low, but not completely alienating your customer base.
It's a delicate dance.
Speaking of delicate dances, what about when COVID hit?
Oof, yeah, talk about a curveball.
The whole airline industry was grounded, basically.
It was brutal, and Ryanair was no exception.
I mean, they're huge, but nobody's that big, right?
Yeah. No kidding. Their CEO actually tried to downplay it at first.
Really?
Yeah, thought things would bounce back quickly, but
But reality had other plans.
tell me about it. Borders slammed shut, demand for travel went kaput.
So what'd they do?
Well, they had to make some tough calls, like every other airline.
Yeah.
Thousands of jobs gone, huge chunks of their fleet grounded,
Must have been a wild ride.
to say the least.
So how do you even begin to recover from something like that? So they're in crisis mode, right? Slashing jobs, grounding planes. What's the playbook when your whole industry just screeches to a halt?
Well, they made some bold moves, that's for sure.
Like what?
For one, they actually doubled down on buying new planes.
Really? In the middle of all that?
Yep, specifically the Boeing 737 MAX.
That's the one that had all those problems, right?
Yeah, it had a rough start, no doubt.
So why on earth would they go all in on those?
Risky move, but Ryanair's all about efficiency.
Right, their whole thing.
And the 737's MAX, whatever else you can say about it, it's fuel efficient.
Ah, so they figured long-term, it'd pay off.
Exactly. Fuel costs are huge for airlines, so saving there's a big deal.
Makes sense, but still a gamble.
Totally. But it looks like it's paying off, at least for now.
Okay, so new planes, check. But what about actually, like, flying them? Did they have to change up their routes or anything?
Actually, that's where things get really interesting.
Oh.
This Wikipedia article, it talks about how they're branching out.
Branching out how?
Well, they're dipping their toes into the whole package holiday thing.
No way, Ryanair doing package holidays.
Yep, partnered up with some tour operators.
Well, that's not very no frills of them.
Right. And get this, they even started a corporate jet charter service.
Hold on, corporate jets. That's like the opposite of Ryanair.
Tell me about it.
Mm.
It's like they're trying to be everything to everyone these days.
So is that even possible? Can they really be the cheapest A&D to compete with? Like luxury travel?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question.
Right.
They're going to have to walk a tightrope, that's for sure.
So after all this, I mean, what's the takeaway for our listeners? What have we learned about Ryanair today?
I think the big takeaway is they're survivors, you know?
For sure.
They started small, shook things up, and even when the world went crazy, they found a way.
They always seem to land on their feet.
Exactly, but it's a cautionary tale, too, you know? Like, yeah, push boundaries, be efficient, but don't forget about the people along the way.
The passengers, the employees, all of that.
Exactly.
Well said, well said. This has been a fascinating look at Ryanair, that's for sure.
Definitely a company to keep an eye on.
Always. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. See you next time.